Good morning, Anne.
Good morning, James.
And good morning, everybody. Hopefully, you are all having a wonderful weekend or a wonderful week whenever it is that you are listening. So, here we are again, Anne.
Yes.
Sunday morning.
Once more.
So, are you happy to begin?
I am, yes.
Brilliant. Where would you like to start this morning?
I'd like to start with something I've been thinking about this week.
Yes.
I went to a hospital this week with somebody for some tests.
Yes.
And while I was there, we obviously, like in any hospital, you park up and then you walk to the place. And I'd like to just explain my experience of it because I'm not the patient. So I'm talking from the view of somebody who is with somebody.
Yes.
Who is a patient.
You were there for support?
I was there for support, yes.
Yes, okay.
So you go to the hospital thinking you're supporting the person that you're with.
Yes.
And in my mind, things changed a little bit because we went to the department where the examination was taking place.
Yes.
And I walked in feeling uncomfortable. Like that's all I can say. I was uncomfortable. It felt, I can only go by my feelings, and it felt dingy is the word I would use.
The hospital itself?
The room itself.
The room itself, okay.
That we walked into. It felt dingy.
Right.
The windows were really dirty. And the picture on the wall had faded. So the sun must come in the window sometimes, but it must be on the frame, and the picture had faded.
Okay.
And the chairs were mismatched.
Right, okay.
Now,
so not a particularly pleasant hospital space for patients to arrive to?
No.
Right,
not
okay.
pleasant at all. There was
Is this an NHS hospital?
Yes,
right,
an
okay.
NHS hospital. And the chairs, there was a couple of wheelchairs there, and there were other chairs, as I say, that didn't match.
Right.
And this is where people are going who are frightened, who are going for tests, where they could have negative results.
Yes.
And they're coming out into that same atmosphere. And they're going
you mean in terms of negative, bad news?
Yes, that's what I'm saying,
yes.
So, and I'm thinking, this is awful. There's nothing pleasant here for somebody to hold on to.
Okay.
And there's a gentleman sat in a wheelchair.
Yes.
And he was sat opposite me, and he wasn't speaking to anybody. And he had tubes. He must have had 6 tubes coming out of his body.
Yes.
And he also had like a sick bowl and was spitting into this bowl. And as awful as this sounds, I'm not very good with anybody who's sick, even though my background is nursing. I never have been very good. So I'm trying not to look, which sounds awful. But this poor man is sat on his own with me. So I asked him a question, and I said to him, how long have you been in hospital? And he said 6.5 months.
Right.
And I've got all of these things. Now, he'd had a colostomy, and he had a stoma bag, and his stoma bag was inside a carrier bag, a Tesco's carrier bag. And I'm looking at all this thinking, how does anybody cope with what this poor man has got to cope with without sitting in a room with a stranger? And it seems he was waiting for a porter.
Yes.
To come and pick him up.
Yes.
Now, this must have been 15 minutes up to this point. And he must have been embarrassed because he's got all these things. There's another lady walking up and down in a gown because obviously she'd had some examination as well, and she had to walk around.
Right, okay.
And then other people were stood up. What I'm trying to say is that my experience as somebody who was there supporting somebody else made me very, very uncomfortable. So how uncomfortable are the people that are in that hospital? Does it take much for somebody to look around and think, how can we make this space nicer?
Yes.
Just as an ordinary human being, that's what I'm saying is, as a nurse or as an orderly or as a doctor.
Yes.
And then later on, we were sat waiting to leave, and somebody came in and said, why are no lights on here? And then they put lights on. We were even sat in the dark with no lights on. And my question really, I suppose, is to myself and to you is,
Right.
why can't we all do something about this? Why can't we all offer to make a waiting room look pretty? Can't we? Is there a way, and I don't know because I'm asking the question, I wonder if there's a way that we could as volunteers go in and paint the walls, provide a nice picture somewhere. Do we have to wait for funds from a government to do this? That's my worry.
It's your worry.
My worry is that we're not proactive enough as people or as human beings.
Yes.
So, where do we start?
I feel your despair almost,
Yes.
and upset. You're upset. You are upset.
I am
with the
upset.
experience. I've had a lot of personal experiences, maybe for a future episode. So I have a lot of first-hand experience of situations and environments that you're talking about.
Yes.
So I can say that I do know what you're talking about.
Yes.
As I'm sure lots of you listening do, either yourselves as a patient, or you've been with your mother or your father or your husband or your wife or with your children. And I'm sure you have experienced what could be said as the best and the worst of the health service, in terms of when it's good, it can literally be life-saving.
Yes.
And the kindness and the compassion and the skill and the dedication of certain individuals and teams of individuals makes all the difference. And then the worst, when all of that can be remiss. And it truly is heartbreaking. And unfortunately, it seems that more and more stories and more experiences are the worst. And things are progressing away from the way that it should be. Or maybe it would be more accurate to say that things are regressing then. Are people not proactive enough? Probably, yes. I think we are all culpable of that, at least in thought. It's very difficult. It's such a difficult question to answer because it's a political question now, it's an economic question, it's a social question. It's a question that touches every area of our lives. So it's very difficult to answer it specifically without it touching all the other areas. But from a sentimental point of view, which I do feel is probably the best place to start in any exploration of the National Health Service, and certainly the best place to finish as well, is a place of care and compassion, and of collective care and compassion, because otherwise it doesn't exist. It's a facade. It's just a face. If it's not a true collective social system that supports the people, by the people, serving the people, if it's not a system of care for everybody, what is it? It's not what it is in essence anymore. Now I know that, like I said, it moves into other areas and times and life changes. I don't know is the short answer, as bluntly and as honestly put, in terms of the politics, the policies, the economics, the technocratic processes that would be in place for painting a waiting room. I would imagine that there probably is a lot of red tape.
Yes.
And in the end, probably a group of volunteers giving of their own time, bringing their own paint and making somewhere look far more pleasant and inviting and comfortable for everybody involved wouldn't be successful, because probably people would say something like, and this is a guess, we'd love you to be able to do it. However, the way things are does not allow members of the public to paint waiting rooms. It has to be done by specific contracts, by specific people in specific areas, from specific budgets to a specific time frame. Yes. And that's dependent upon trusts and all manner of different things that I don't really know about firsthand.
Yes.
I don't know, but it feels like it wouldn't be straightforward. If it is straightforward, then we really are being apathetic in terms of action.
Yes. I found that the other side of it is that as I walked out of the room after the gentleman had gone, as I walked out of this small waiting room, which was for patients, by the way, not for public,
Yes.
I think I must have just walked in there by mistake, to be honest.
Sounds like
I don't think I was supposed to be in there. Because
Yeah.
just outside the doors, there's bright painting.
Right, okay.
So, and the waiting room, and there was even a child's little waiting room, which was very colourful.
Right.
But I think the reason that it upset me so much was because it was patients who were in dire straits, really. They were all people who had stomas or had drains in them, and
I understand.
and I think that's the part that upset me more, was that they should be being uplifted. Sat outside was all right. Public facing. What I felt was very, very claustrophobic in this tiny space where people who were not necessarily poorly, to be honest, because
Yes.
they were in recovery. So I wouldn't like to say they were poorly.
It sounds to me like you met patients who were inpatients. Like the
Yes,
gentleman,
I did, yes.
like the gentleman
they were
that you
all
spoke
inpatients.
to said he'd been in hospital for 6.5 months.
Yes.
It sounds like that the other areas you are describing, and again, I'm guessing,
Yes.
are for outpatients where they're coming in
Yes.
for clinics.
Yes, and they looked all right.
And then there are certain spaces where inpatients are maybe going
Yes.
for treatments or consultations or tests or
Yes.
examinations or all of the above, which outpatients may also be there as well. So it's not an easy one to define, but I'm sure everybody gets a sense of what you're talking about.
Yes. And I it's one of those things, but it's just
It's heartbreaking, isn't it?
For me, it's
I'm finding it
heartbreaking.
difficult because I'm trying to,
Yes.
I suppose I'm trying to say something insightful or at least
No.
interesting. And in all honesty, it makes me feel upset.
Yes.
Because I'm fully aware that we are talking about, and all of you listening, in one way, shape, form or another, we're talking about your mother, your father,
Yeah.
your son, your daughter, your wife, somebody you know that's really poorly
Yes.
now. And you will be, as I would be, afraid, concerned that the care isn't what it should
Yes.
be. And that people don't seem to care about the fact it is lacking. It's not that people are trying almost, it's apathy from the general public, not everybody, and I'm sure not you listening this morning, but it's exacerbating and it's frustrating and it's heartbreaking.
Yes.
It's heartbreaking to see this happening.
Yes. So that's my little rant for today. Eventually the porter came and took the gentleman away.
Okay.
And I wish him well. I wish him really well, because he does live on his own as well. And I suppose that made me feel sad that he was going home on his own with all these drains and things in. So I think it was something that just at that time touched my heart, which can happen. It happens, doesn't it?
Yes.
I could walk into a hospital, and I've worked in hospitals, and you can do it as a job every single day. But as working in schools, even when I've been in education, there's always somebody who can take your heart.
Yes.
And I think this is one of those weeks, isn't it? I think it's been a week for us, because many of you know that we have done work with the homeless, haven't we?
Yes.
On the streets.
Yes.
And this week, we particularly helped, especially through the pandemic, we helped 2 men
Yes.
because they were given a house, weren't they? They were very lucky.
Not via us, just to be
No.
clear.
Not via us,
and
no.
the help has come from many of you
Yes.
have given your time and
Yes.
energy and money as well at
And
times.
Stride for Truth, yeah.
Absolutely. So there's a network of people volunteering time, energy, community projects, and lots of people have given to that in lots of
Yes.
different ways.
Yes.
It's not just you and I.
Yeah. But it's not something that we've made public an awful lot, is it? But
No.
The 2 of them, Steve and Dave, have even done podcasts with us, haven't they, in the past?
Yes,
So
yes,
they've
absolutely.
come
They've sat
here.
down and we've recorded some wonderful episodes of the soul-to-soul discussions that we did a
Yes.
couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And you're right, on a couple of occasions, Dave and Steve did come and talk with you.
And they've come and they've been dressed up and they've been
Yeah.
wonderful when they've done
Yeah,
it.
it was a
yes.
real pleasure.
And they're a pleasure. They've always been a pleasure to be with. And this week, and then you lose track of them. This happens within the areas that people live sometimes because their phones, they don't have
Yes,
the same
they're always
phones all
changing
the
their
time.
phone
They change
number.
the phones all the time.
Yes.
So we haven't heard from them for a while, and Dave rang again this week to tell us some bad news about Steve.
Yes. Stephen, to be fair, he likes to be called
he likes
Stephen.
to be called Stephen, yes, about Stephen. And talking to Dave about what's happening on the streets now, and what's happening in the area where he's got one of these houses. I think what I'm trying to say is, I think we've got to get back to basics. We're all at this time, me included, thinking what's happening with the government, what's happening with Trump, what's happening in war-torn areas. But maybe we're losing a little bit of sight of what's happening on the ground level.
Right, okay.
That bothers me as well, is that we sometimes, I feel we might have to get back to observing and doing things, even if it's only going out and helping somebody with the shopping, carrying a bag.
Yeah.
I think we're forgetting basic human, I don't know what the word is, humanity, I think it's humanity.
Yes. The big issues are taking up everybody's headspace, so
That's
to speak,
right, that's what I'm
and are
trying to
dominating all of the airwaves and everybody's conversations. And actually we can have a far bigger impact than we could imagine on an everyday level, every day, just with what seems to be small acts of genuine care, compassion and kindness, humanity,
Yes.
that actually starts to change the world around us. So we can do something about it, if I understand
Yes.
what you are saying in essence.
On a very
I agree with
basic
you.
level.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I was going to say previously, when you were discussing meeting the gentleman in hospital
Yes.
and how he touched your heart and how you had a conversation with him. And I do feel this is a general point, but it's so true. And I absolutely know that everybody, all of you listening, will have your own sense of what this means. Obviously, it will be personal to you, but we've all been in positions when we felt unbelievably vulnerable. Maybe not unbelievably vulnerable, but more vulnerable than words can express. And the kindness of a friend, or maybe even a stranger, can be the difference. It can make a difference, and at certain times it can be the difference. And we can never really understand what that difference is, but we all feel it in those moments. And it may only be a smile sometimes, or somebody stops to talk to you, or somebody offers you a kindness, whether it's, like you said, giving you a lift with something, offering you a drink, talking to you, helping you in some way, spending some time with you, something.
Yes.
Some human, powerfully deep truth,
Yes.
connection that changes how that moment is punctuated through our lives. We can never capture in words what that means, but we have such a greater impact than we could ever imagine on each other when we show the best of our nature towards each other. So yes, I completely agree with you. And genuine, sincere, small, but powerful acts of goodness and of compassion and of humanity each day can start to make things change. And if it doesn't change anything, at least in that moment, it's brought something. It's brought some goodness, some truth, some humanity to the moment. And in this world, it needs it. It needs all of us to be able to do what we can in any given situation to the best of our ability. And we can all do that. We can all, every day, when opportunities arise, take those opportunities to bring goodness into this world. And it doesn't have to be big acts of grandeur. We don't need to make a fuss about it. And it doesn't need to be at a huge financial cost. It doesn't even need to be at a financial cost. It just needs to be from our hearts. It needs to be genuine for us to feel that a lot of people, and potentially us, at certain times, are hurting and are very, very vulnerable. and we need to support each other, and we need to have each other's back. And if we don't stand up for each other, and if we don't speak out for each other, and if we don't stand up for what is right and true and good, it may not stand. So it's incumbent upon all of us to put our hope and our faith forwards and put it in action. I hope that makes sense.
It does make sense. It makes perfect sense. It doesn't take much, does it? Because we all have times where we feel, we get up in the morning and we might feel miserable and go out, and you pass somebody and they smile at you and they start talking to you.
Yes.
And our mood changes.
Absolutely,
straight
yes,
away.
yes.
And it doesn't have to be somebody that you even know. You don't. It's quite often it's a stranger, isn't it? That when you're paying out some money. I can remember when we went to Canada. We did a trip to Canada.
Yes.
And on the way back from Canada, I was using up my money. The money that's left, the Canadian money.
Yes.
And I think I was about $3 Canadian short for what I wanted.
Right.
And I didn't have anything else left.
Okay.
And obviously I couldn't convert the money. I didn't know what I was doing.
Okay.
And I was buying it. And the lady said to me, you need this amount. And I said, oh, well, I haven't got anything else. I'll have to put it back. And a lady behind me said, just put her hand over and put the money on the desk and said, that's how much you need.
Yes.
And I turned to her and I said, thank you very much for that. I waited to thank her, and when I thanked her, it turned out that she was a native Indian or whatever they are of Canada, and she was a singer.
Yes.
She was singing for world peace.
Wow.
And I was talking to her, and she gave me her card. And
Right.
she said to me, we will still be in touch with each other.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, oh, this is really, really odd. I still have that lady's card.
Wow.
And we still send each other emails
One of those,
occasionally.
wow, serendipitous moments
Yeah.
that seems to be woven into time. That's
Because
fascinating.
it is fascinating, isn't it? Because that was our journey. That was the purpose of our journey to Canada, was to meet their Indigenous people.
Yes.
That is why
Yes,
we
you're right, we
went.
did, yes.
And even we wanted to meet one of the chiefs, and that was the same, wasn't it? That was unusual.
Yes. Well, just to give this story a little bit of context before we finish, and maybe we
Yes.
could talk about this in more
Yes.
detail in the episodes to come. We went to Canada specifically in 2018, I think. 2018, the trip that you're talking about.
Yes.
And I think there was 5 of us that went. I mean, and it was a real road trip, wasn't it?
Well and truly.
And we covered some ground. I think it was for 2 weeks, and we flew from Manchester to Vancouver. And one of the main purposes of going was to, as you say, Anne, to meet
Yes.
the Indigenous First Nations, native
Yes.
people in a specific area. More details to come maybe, and I also don't want to betray anybody's confidence, because this was very sacred and
was
a
very
very precious and special meeting. So with the utmost of respect, but also wanting to tell a good story as well, this actually happened, and we did meet one of the prominent chiefs, and I think his sister. It wasn't absolutely
his
clear.
wife.
Was it his wife? Okay.
It was his wife.
So one of the prominent chiefs and his wife, and we had a really good conversation. Interestingly, we didn't necessarily meet them in the environment that you would expect. It was in a shopping mall in the dining court, in terms of where all the fast food joints are, and we were looking for, I don't know, a slice of pizza or a sandwich or a burger or something, and again with the serendipitous.
Yes.
Whether you believe it or not, just go with it for now. It doesn't matter, but it was I just knew, and anyway, we sat down and we talked, and it unfolded, and this links to a narrative to do with nations, people
Yes.
that are from the North Americas, so Canada, Western Canada predominantly, but the Americas down to the Hopi and across the entire region, and so there is a lot to this, and hesitating in terms of detail because it was very sacred, and there is a code in terms of making sure that we honour and respect what was discussed. But I hope it is at least intriguing enough for you to be interested in. But it was powerful, and it was very human, and it was it was more than uplifting. It was moving because it was a success. Yes. And there was a huge amount of faith that was put, because we went without any meeting scheduled.
Yes.
We went knowing that that was our objective ultimately, as well as to see Western Canada, the Rockies, British Columbia, Vancouver, Banff, Jasper. I mean, it was absolutely stunning. Canada is absolutely awe-inspiringly, magnificently beautiful. It really is a wow nation. And this is the west of Canada that we went to. But it was specifically for this human connection.
Yes.
Well, for something that is to do with the human family, and to give it more air as well, something that is beyond the human family as well. There is a large picture to this. But it was a success. And there are people out there, there are stories out there, there are threads of meaning, there are threads of understanding that are woven across the entire earth, with Indigenous cultures and Indigenous people, as well as modern day understandings, people of faith and goodness, of life and meaning, and who have a connectedness, they have a thread, and they recognise that this thread is woven across the entire earth, and there is one earth that we share. So underneath,
it's a tapestry,
absolutely,
it?
Underneath the chaos and the turmoil and the despair and the destruction, there is a masterpiece being woven here.
It is.
But for us to be able to inherit that masterpiece, there is a lot of work that needs to be done. So do not underestimate the power that we can all have, including you or I, and all of you listening. You will already have this impact on people. You don't know the difference that you make in each other's lives and in the lives of your friends and family and the strangers that you meet every single day. Your love in action, your kindness, your compassion, your smiles, your generosity, your curiosity, your compliments, as well as your no's and your challenges and your holding to account, in goodness and in conscience, is helping to shape this world. So you are powerful, more than words can ever describe, and we are all that together. So I hope that although it is a time of despair, and we've got to face that we are facing it in strength and in unity and in force, with a sense of optimism and power and motivation and a steely determination that we will succeed for goodness.
And can I say, just before we finish, that the workshop that we are doing here on Sunday this week is going to be from the very beginning of that soul entering this world.
Wow.
To when we leave it, but the journey and what that journey is meant to be. So please, if anybody would be interested, please get in touch with us. And thank you all for listening this week.
Oh, thank you. Well, from an upset start in terms of something that was a little bit raw, but absolutely meaningful. And I'm glad that you brought it up, Anne, because I'm sure so many of you listening can relate to the poor experiences that we are all having, particularly with the health service, but with lots of public services at the moment, and with life in general, to hopefully a rousing and stirring invitation to a workshop and stories of global travel and the human community. And
10 of them, not just one.
Yeah. 10 workshops. Yes, absolutely. So I hope you feel uplifted and inspired, but also determined to put this world right. Yes. And to stand up for what is right, and to be the goodness that you are in this world. Well, as always, that has gone very quickly.
Very quickly.
Well, have a wonderful weekend, everybody. And we look forward to being with you and speaking with you again next week, next Sunday.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.